This week we begin Sefer Shemot, the book of Shemot, with Parsha Shemot. And Shemot means names. And this is crucial to the story that is about to unfold, the story of the Exodus, the beginning of the redemption of the Jewish people. And that is very tied into our names, which represents our essence, who we are, what our purpose is. And that's why we're given in the beginning of this parsha the names of the 12 tribes that went down to Egypt. Because at that point in time, when they had first come down, each one of the tribes had their identity, their purpose. They knew who they were, and Yaakov blessed them accordingly. And they lived their lives based on who they were and what they felt their essence and identity was. And they were very connected to being the 12 tribes of Israel, of Yaakov. And unfortunately, after the 12 tribes had passed and they integrated into society and became assimilated and slowly lost their identity as Bnei Israel, they became enslaved. They were vulnerable to this enslavement and the Shibud Mitzrayim. And it wasn't until Moshe was born that we're given a name of somebody from Israel, because Moshe, after we're told his story, after of course he's put in the basket and the daughter Paro finds him and she takes him in, as we know. And the first stories that were told about him is that he was true to what he believed in, to what he felt his morals and his ethics. He was very tied to that, despite what the consequences might be. As he went out, he saw the Mitzri hitting the Jew, and he stood up for him right away and he killed him. And the next day, he stood up when the Jew was fighting against the Jew. He had to say something. He felt compelled. He was his moral compunctions didn't let him leave things as they were. And this is his personality all along, because then when he had to run away because Paro found out that he had killed the Misri, and he runs to Midian because Paro wanted to kill him. We see him stand up for the daughters of Yitro by the well when these rabble rousers were starting up at them, and he gave water to drink to their flock. And anyway, he goes to live in the house of Yitro, and as we know, famously, one day he goes out to shepherd the sheep, and God appears to him on the mountain and in the burning bush, and tells him that he wants him to be the one to take out the Jewish people from Mitzrayim. And Moshe, because of his great humility, he argues, and he gives God a hard time. But one of the questions he asks God is, when they ask me, what should I say your name is? When they ask me, what is your name? And this is like a running theme throughout the book, is it has to do with a name, because a name is what we see as a name is when we understand somebody and who they are as represented by their name. And he knew that the people were going to want to know, who is this, who is God, who is God that's going to save us, and they wanted some sort of a definition and understanding. And God says, yeah, I will be that which I will be. And it's really interesting because in the Jewish tradition, God has countless names. I mean, there are seven names that are very holy that we're very careful not to write out or not to throw out or not to have destroyed, because we consider them very holy. But God has, it's told to us, hundreds of names, and this is very odd. We have one God with countless names. And why is that? And I think that the reason why that is because God is one. God is everything. Ein od milvado, one in the world. Nothing exists without him. We can't even fathom what this means or understand what this means. It's impossible. And the way that human beings understand God is what we see, how we see his manifestation in this world. And that's why there are different names that we use. We have a name that we use when there's judgment. We have a name we use when we see God's mercy. We have many different names to represent the different ways that we experience God. But that's for us because we're understanding and experiencing that manifestation, that part of God, even though it's not separate from the whole. This is what we're seeing, this is what we're experiencing, this is what we're understanding at that moment because we're limited. And the Jewish people, when they ask what's his name, they're not going to be able to get God's whole essence in one name. And it's interesting also because name, Shem, is also the same letters as Sham there. When you say somebody's name, it's something that you experience as outside of you. I am Eliza, you are uh, Betty, and you are Betty over there. And I understand you as I see you from that distance. But God is something that each one of us has inside of us, a unique part of God that makes us different and separate from everybody. And when we experience God, we can do that at any given time, attached to any experience, any emotion, any thought process. We can experience God in that moment. And we have to just leave ourselves open to accepting and understanding and experiencing. We can't see it and know it. It's something that unfolds at every point in time. And God saying, I will be what I will be, means that you might experience God today in his strict judgment when you're experiencing something that's very harsh and hard to understand. But tomorrow, when you're redeemed, you might see his abundant kindness and mercy and everything connect, as we say in the name of Hashem, this Hayahu and yeah. They might have experienced that minute scene. Oh, this is, we understand that was our forefathers, and then there was the enslavement, and now we're going to be freed, and they kind of get a glimpse of the full picture of God. And every moment in time they're going to experience something different, and the people have to understand that they can't pin down God to one name to try to understand what will he always be, how do I please God or see God or understand God. Because if you try to limit God to one thing, um, it's really going to lead you to abandoning God, because God is not just mercy as we understand it. God is not just any one aspect. So when I think that this is a great lesson that he's trying to um, teach the people, because if you want to have an everlasting faith in God, you have to be in the moment, experiencing God as the moment presents itself, because God is always there. And if you tap in, whatever the situation is at that moment, whatever the emotion is at that moment, if you tap in, you will experience God at that time. And it will be different today from tomorrow, as it should be, hopefully, because we shouldn't be having the same exact experience today as we have to. We couldn't, it's just not even possible, but we shouldn't, in our perception, think that it's all the same. And I think this is really important, even a lesson aside from God in people, that we should understand that there's an aspect of godliness in each person, and that it might manifest itself slightly different in another day, despite the fact that you think you know who they are based on who you think they are with that name. You think that Betty is Betty and she'll always be Betty. And so you expect her to be have the same experience you had with her yesterday that you had the day before. No, things will be different. She's gone through time, and things change. I think this is the best lesson we can take in life. And it gives me a lot of faith and strength, and ability, because if I just saw God as one way and I wasn't seeing the manifestation of that aspect of God in a situation, I would lose all my faith. And faith is what gets me through, and what connects me, and what gives me a feeling of inner peace that I hope to forever have. Bless you all. Shabbat shalom.